Apple readies iOS 27 receipt photo bill split. Every group meal now ends inside Wallet instead of a separate app. Receipt scanning removes the friction that kept users jumping between apps. The real pressure lands on payment startups that built their moat around receipt passing and contact splitting. Venmo must either deepen its own camera integration or accept slower growth among iPhone users who default to messages requests. Watch the churn numbers once iOS 27 hits beta. The convenience edge shifts to whoever owns the default camera roll workflow. xLight secures 150 million chips for EUV laser. Free electron lasers sidestep the power limits that constrain current EUV tools. The Albany prototype now gives chipmakers a concrete timeline to test sub-2 nanometer patterning without multi-patterning overhead. Intel and TSMC must decide whether to license the approach or double down on high-NA upgrades that still hit the same wall. Foundries without access will see their yield curves flatten earlier than expected, shifting capital allocation away from 2027 nodes. Scapia closes $63 million travel fintech round. General Catalyst's check signals that travel fintech in India now hinges on regulatory moats rather than just card issuance. Scapia can push its Forex card into more markets while rivals wait on approvals. Razorpay and Pine Labs must accelerate their own banking tie-ups or seed the frequent flyer segment where margins sit highest. Total capital raised now exceeds what most domestic players have deployed in 5 years, resetting the pace for any new entrant. NewLimit raises $435 million Series C at $3.1 billion value. Founders Fund placing nearly $500 million behind reprogramming changes the risk profile for every other longevity bet. Smaller players now face compressed timelines to reach human data before capital concentrates further. Expect Altos Labs and Calico to either disclose their own trial starts ahead of schedule or watch key researchers move to better-funded programs. The 2027 target sets a visible clock that public markets will price into any competing platform. Meta expands teen safety settings globally. Expanded protections for teens arrive just as regulators prepare to mandate even tighter controls on recommendation engines. Meta gets first-mover credit on defaults that limit repetitive, harmful exposure across its family of apps. Snapchat and TikTok must match the settings rollout or risk looking like the weak link when lawmakers next hold hearings on youth mental health. The change quietly raises the bar for any platform still optimizing for maximum teen session time. Taiwan demos Ghost Robotics patrol dogs. 3 chassis lengths let patrols swap payloads without redesigning every route across the islands. Salt exposure will still force quarterly actuator replacements unless the supply chain adds marine-grade seals this year. That same qualification process usually takes 14 months from first test article to volume delivery. US component makers now face a compressed window to qualify parts before Taiwan scales to battalion strength. Missing that deadline hands the initiative to any vendor already shipping in corrosive environments. Endorfy previews PC cases and coolers at Computex. Chassis that fit 450mm cards leave almost no room for standard radiator thickness in the top exhaust path. Builders chasing these cases will need the matching tall coolers or watch junction temperatures climb past 90 degrees under sustained loads. Retailers who stocked only the cases last cycle lost attach rate on the higher margin cooling bundles. Endorfy timed the Q3 drop for the back-to-school refresh when system integrators placed their largest orders. Valve delays Steam Machine over RAM shortage. Memory spot prices have climbed every week since the HBM allocation shift began. Valve's delay hands smaller console makers first claim on the remaining DDR5 stock for the holiday window. Those vendors can now lock in fixed pricing that Valve will have to match or absorb when production restarts. Contract manufacturers without similar volume commitments get squeezed first on allocation. Autodesk acquires MaintainX construction software. Field data from thousands of active job sites now flows straight into Autodesk's scheduling algorithms without any extra integration work from contractors. Procore must either embed similar sensor hooks inside its own platform or watch its enterprise renewals slip to Autodesk bundles by the end of next fiscal year. Mid-market firms already running both tools will consolidate to cut license spend. Bloom Energy details on-site power shift for data centers. Operators moving generation behind the meter also sidestep the new transmission interconnection queues that now stretch past 3 years in several states. Texas gains look attractive until gas pipeline capacity gets re-rated for the added baseload. Pipeline owners will face expansion pressure within 18 months or see curtailments hit during summer peaks. HP schedules investor events for Tech Outlook. Channel checks already show PC attach rates slipping below 2023 levels. HP's conference schedule sets up a test for whether enterprise demand can stabilize before services revenue takes the hit. If management signals any pullback in guidance, distributors will accelerate shifts toward competitors with stronger notebook lines by the end of this year. The June meetings become the first public signal on whether HP can hold margin without deeper channel inventory cuts. Watch for any mention of print attach rates as the real leading indicator. Commodore Community Licensing Pipeline enters beta. Royalty structures in the beta favor volume over exclusivity, which could dilute the Commodore name faster than any partnership expands it. Third-party hardware makers now have a clear path to branded replicas without heavy legal overhead. Expect the first licensed devices to reach Kickstarter campaigns within 9 months, pressuring unlicensed sellers to either sign on or exit the retro market entirely. Early applicants are testing approval speed right now. Any bottleneck will separate committed manufacturers from those just testing the waters. Avnet joins BofA Tech Conference June 2. Distribution margins tighten when suppliers bypass the middleman on enterprise deals. Avnet's June 2 slot will test whether distribution growth can outpace direct sales pressure from chip makers. If the presentation highlights solutions revenue without addressing recent inventory corrections, customers may accelerate direct negotiations with suppliers instead. The conference becomes a referendum on whether Avnet can maintain its wedge as hardware cycles shorten. Watch the Q&A for hints on supplier contract renewals due this fall, since shifts would hit volume commitments first. Silicon Valley NIMBY push boosts Bloom Energy. Local resistance to data centers is handing Bloom Energy a faster path to utility-scale deployments than any marketing push could achieve. Power constraints now force hyperscalers to evaluate on-site generation options within the next 12 months. Bloom stands to capture contracts that previously went to grid upgrades alone. If fuel cell costs stay above diesel alternatives, though, the window closes once transmission projects clear local hurdles in 2026. Early deployments will show if fuel agreements lock margins before grids recover. Andrew left convicted in short seller case. Other activist funds must either move into private market bets or accept thinner returns on slower campaigns. The conviction raises the bar for public statements, pushing research cycles longer before any position goes live. Expect fewer high-profile campaigns against mid-cap software names as a direct result. Funds that built models around rapid public pressure will need new tactics within the next 2 quarters. Legal reviews now add weeks to every new idea targeting listed companies. Smaller ones feel it first. Medical tech giant lists Seattle campus for sale. Seattle operations often mask deeper supply chain shifts. The listing price suggests the firm is testing whether it can offload legacy facilities without triggering supplier contract renegotiations. Watch the next earnings call for clues on how this affects their device assembly timelines. Expect at least 2 contract manufacturers to gain leverage on pricing talks by Q4 as excess capacity hits the market. Smaller rivals now have an opening to recruit the specialized process engineers who built the original lines. Space Northwest launches Commercial Space Accelerator. Hardware accelerators in this sector rarely deliver exits inside 3 years. The real leverage here sits in the Federation's supplier network rather than the curriculum itself. New participants will bypass traditional qualification hurdles that have kept smaller shops out of prime contracts. Established players like Rocket Lab must now decide whether to match the mentorship terms or risk losing preferred supplier status on upcoming bids. Procurement officers at primes are already adjusting their outreach lists accordingly. Mycore raises £4 million for low-carbon materials. Material costs in UK construction have stayed flat despite green mandates. Mycor's waste-based panels could undercut cement suppliers by 12% on embodied carbon projects once scaled. That margin pressure will hit aggregate producers first, pushing them to renegotiate waste feedstock contracts they currently ignore. Developers locked into net zero timelines gain a new lever in bidding negotiations by mid-next year. Expect the first pilot projects to appear in public sector tenders within 18 months. Lighttable secures $22 million for pre-construction platform. Pre-construction reviews still eat 8% of project budgets on average. Lightable's drawing analysis targets that slice directly. General contractors who skip integration will see their change order rates climb against peers who adopt it early. The next 12 months will show whether this compresses the window for value engineering or simply shifts disputes earlier in the timeline. Owners financing large builds should demand compatibility clauses in their next GC agreements. This changes how RFPs get scored going forward. Navigate AI lands $25 million Contech funding. Field reporting tools have long suffered from fragmented data entry. This round backs a platform aimed at closing that loop on active sites. Rival providers like Autodesk Construction will need to accelerate their mobile sync features or watch mid-sized GCs migrate workflows. The test comes when first enterprise deployments hit their SLA requirements next year. Early adopters will lock in pricing before volume commitments become standard.